Hello, everybody. It's Andrew Field, and I'm sure everybody knew about what happened yesterday down in Washington, D.C. If you don't, I'd recommend you watch the news more because it was pretty historic, I'd say. Um, I'll talk about the Georgia elections first, but it's really sad to think about what happened yesterday. Um, about the Georgia elections, more than 3 million people voted early, which was good. Senator Perdue was quarantining after COVID-19 exposure. The Georgia runoffs, which took place January 5th, was really important because it was two runoff seats that determined who would take control of the Senate. It was because in the past elections, neither candidate won 50%, so they had to do a runoff election. If at least one Republican won, then the Senate would still be in Republican control. If both Democrats won, it'd be 50-50 tie, and soon-to-be Vice President Kamala Harris would break that tie as president of the Senate. That's why it was extremely important. Um, so the Democratic candidates pulled through. Thankfully, Obama, Harris, and Biden encouraged people to wait in line to vote. And we found out early the next day that both Raphael Warnock won against Kelly Loeffler, and that was historical because that was the first black senator elected to Georgia, and also the first, I think it was the second black Democrat from a southern state. Um, John Ossoff defeated David Perdue to win, and he took the second Georgia seat. The Senate was now in control with the Democrats because both Ossoff and Warnock won their races, and Harris will break the tie, like I said. So that's a big deal. If you put that together, Biden won the presidency, so Democrats have the presidency, kept the majority in the House, and now have overtaken the Senate. So now the Republicans are the minorities in um, all of Congress and the presidency. It's a big shift because I think, 2018 the Democrats won the House back. So in 2017, in the beginning of Trump's term, the Republicans had the House, Senate, and presidency. And because Trump is the worst president we've ever had, the Democrats took all three back in 4 years. It's pretty incredible. Um, Trump pressured George Secretary of State on a phone call that was recorded to recalculate the election tally for him to be able to win the state of Georgia. The conversation, like I was saying, is on tape. It was leaked because Trump was trying to say, his bullshit of, oh, it was a perfect phone call. And the Georgia Secretary of State was like, oh, really? It was? And decided to leak the tape. And Trump was quoted with saying, I just want to find 11,780 votes because that's the amount that he lost. He lost the state of Georgia by about 12,000 votes. And that is impeachable, I would say. The President of the United States is contacting a local official and trying to overturn a state election that the people decided. They already did a recount in Georgia, a hand recount, and he lost in the courts. He tried all the legal options, so he did an illegal option that failed as well. But he should be impeached for that alone. And for the events that happened yesterday, he should definitely be impeached for that. Um, Former House Speaker Paul Ryan denounced the GOP challenge of the Electoral College certification. Um, this was before the events of yesterday. Yesterday, what was supposed to happen was Congress was supposed to act as a rubber stamp and say, um, the election certified, the states already certified the election. They're just, Congress is just certifying that. Basically, that's all they were meant to do. It was supposed to be an easy thing, but the Republicans were trying to use that, simple process and trying to use that to object the election results that were already certified. Republican from Louisiana, Clay Higgins, said he'd object to the certification, falsely claiming there was a lot of evidence of election crimes from the 2020 election, which there was not, and they didn't find any evidence of it. The funny thing is these people can say that all they want, but every time they're asked to bring forth any evidence of election fraud, they come up with nothing. Over 150 Republicans planned to challenge the electoral vote count. And people knew this, beforehand, that thousands of Trump supporters were gathering in D.C. for the Save America March. The National Guard they said would be, the National Guard they said would be deployed in Washington D.C. And arrests were made. I saw the day before yesterday. But if you don't already know, yesterday Trump supporters stormed the Capitol, and the significance of that is that not only has that never been done before, besides it when we were in a war with Great Britain, and in 1814 the British came and took ablaze the Capitol. It's insane to think that the U.S. Capitol, which is a beacon for democracy, was vandalized and broken into by a bunch of thugs. Mr. President, that's the time you want to use the word thugs, not against peaceful protesters. A lot of people are angry, rightfully so, with the events that took place yesterday. I'm one of them. I just stood watching, the TV for hours, just watching everything that unfolded. I'm sure a lot of people did the same. The pro-Trump mob smashed windows to breach the U.S. Capitol. Trump gave a speech to these pathetic losers about an hour or two before they broke into the Capitol, vowing he would not concede to Biden. And they broke into the Capitol thinking that if they were going to delay certifying the results, that they could help Trump win the election. And they believe their idiot president, he's the president, but their idiot leader, who tells them that Trump would have won the election if not for election fraud and the Democrats rigging the election. That's what these people believed, and they broke into the Capitol during a congressional session thinking that they would help Trump win. And there's a lot of Republicans, not all, but a lot of Republicans out there in the Senate and in the House who were going along with this, objecting the certification, starting with the retard Josh Hawley from Missouri, and a lot of people who went along with the president. The two idiots from Georgia that lost, thankfully. It was not a good sight to see yesterday. Police clashed with the Trump supporters, and the U.S. Capitol Police evacuated areas of the Capitol. The pro-Trump, in the beginning they were called protesters, because in the beginning they looked that way, but they definitely weren't by the end of it. The Trump mob stormed the barricades. Mike Pence was also evacuated. Trump wasn't there. He showed up to give a speech, and then he watched it on TV. The D.C. mayor issued a 6 p.m. curfew. There was an armed standoff at the House floor. House members were given gas masks on the House floor. Members of the House and Senate were told to shelter in place, and they had to be brought to a secure location to ensure their safety. Protesters were nearing anarchy, trying to overthrow Congress and Congress's role. And another good thing that people have brought up is the difference between how the police reacted to Black Lives Matter protests, where people, there were looters and people taking advantage of the Black Lives Matter movement, but for the most part, what studies found, and what you saw on TV, well, they showed the bad a lot, but If you were to look at it, there were a lot of images of mass protests, but they were peaceful. There were people kneeling. There were people shouting. But the Black Lives Matter protest for the most part was peaceful, and the president was totally okay with tear gassing and hurting peaceful protesters in the summer for a photo op with the church, to enrage his base. But he could not tear gas or anything like that. I mean, they did eventually, but it took them hours to tear gas these people. Not until they were inside the Capitol building did they start tear gassing and trying to get these people arrested and everything like that. There are people that are rightly saying if these were black Americans or Muslim Americans or minority Americans that were marching in and storming the Capitol, there would have been a bunch of people that probably would have been killed. And there were people that died, a couple people that died from this, but I'm saying the police probably would have killed a lot of people before they were able to enter the building. But not that the police didn't do anything, but some of the police just let the mob just walk into the Capitol, basically. And the National Guard wasn't there for a long time. There was just a lot of problems. But the main point I'm trying to say is the police are very tame to Trump rioters versus how they handled Black Lives Matter protests, when those were mostly peaceful versus the Trump rioters who were obviously not peaceful. And it comes very hypocritical to a president who is talking so much about law and order. There was a shooting victim that ended up dying, was transported from the U.S. Capitol. The victim's name was Ashley Bobbitt. I hope I said that correctly. 35-year-old that was shot in the Capitol and sadly passed. And I'm sorry to her family, and it's just really crazy what happened yesterday. Trump tweeted to his supporters to stay peaceful. That obviously wasn't enough, and they weren't peaceful in the beginning, so that tweet was pretty useless. The multiple state National Guard were dispatched to the U.S. Capitol like 2 or 3 hours later. Multiple officers were injured in the violence. They were just understaffed, and a lot of people are rightly calling out the Capitol Police and the National Guard, saying, "How are you understaffed? You knew there was going to be thousands of Trump supporters there who were clearly angry and didn't want the session to go, and they were somehow still understaffed." So that was the Capitol Police's fault, 100%. Or whoever made that call to understaff those people. A pro-Trump protester breached Pelosi's office. They also breached the Senate, the main Senate room. It's just they were everywhere in the Capitol. It seemed like Vice President Pence made a statement that said the people involved with the attack, and it's good that he used the word attack. You don't want to be light on your statements, like the president. And he said they should be prosecuted. President-elect Biden spoke to the cameras shortly and on the attack on the Capitol, and he was telling Trump to go on television and stop it, and Trump didn't do that, which is part of the reason why he should be impeached today. Trump, they filmed something. He told people to go home, which was good, but he kept lying about the election results and was saying it was rigged. And at the end of the video, he said, I love you. You guys are special, to people that broke into the Capitol and were risking the safety of all those senators and House representatives and people. It's just not how you should end a video, Mr. President. Let's just say that. So obviously, people were calling for the 25th Amendment, which means if the cabinet feels the president is failing to do his duty as president of the United States, they can say they want him removed. And I don't know exactly how it goes, but I think the cabinet makes that decision. And if the president disagrees, then and the cabinet and the president can't agree, like where the president refuses to step down, you need a 2/3 vote in Congress and the Senate. And it probably won't go through, especially with there being 13 days until he leaves office. But I think that Congress and the cabinet should still invoke the 25th Amendment, because even if it doesn't go through, and he still would get impeached again, and it would just show that there was some type of response, showing that what was done by the president's words was not okay. I think there needs to be some sort of accountability for what happened. The police, after hours, used flashbangs and tear gas to end up clearing the mob, but by the time the National Guard from other states came, most of the people were already gone. I guess not most, but yeah, I'd say about most of the people were already gone. In the beginning, you saw the Capitol just stocked with Trump supporters, and you saw that number decrease a good amount by the time they got there, and they should have been there in the beginning. Twitter did a bold move. They locked Trump's account for 12 hours and warned that he could get permanently banned because of his tweets inciting violence, which he's done before. Trump deleted the tweets to get his account back, so I don't know if he'll soon get his account back, or they threatened to ban him permanently, so I guess I'll try and update you as that goes. Former President George W. Bush wrote a statement on the matter. Senator Josh Hawley put a fist up in support of the crowd before they invaded the Capitol. That should show him to be guilty, guilty, guilty. UK leader Boris Johnson responded to the mob storming the Capitol, saying, disgraceful scenes from the U.S. Capitol. The U.S. stands for democracy, and there needs to be a peaceful transfer of power. U.S. allies were, of course, shocked by the event, but they were in support of America's democracy. U.S. adversaries were loving the sight, like China and Russia. Congress did a very crucial thing where after the Capitol Police said it was safe to come back, the House and the Senate came back to their chambers and came back to convene to certify the election. They stayed up, I'm pretty sure, till like 3 in the morning to make sure that they certified the election. Thankfully, some Republicans, not all, but some, withdrew their objections to certifying the election. I'd say that Pence gave a strong opening speech, and I was able to see a lot of speeches from congressmen that really struck home the message that what happened today was not okay. And a lot of them, thankfully, put blame on Trump and saying that his words and actions caused this as well. Just want to say speeches like Senator Schumer, Senator Sass, Senator Cory Booker, Senator Dick Durbin had really good speeches. And I'd say Mitt Romney's speech was the most powerful, because he's a Republican also. And in the beginning, he was saying, like, I'm honored to serve with all these people. And, he blamed Trump, thankfully, and also was saying how, the best thing you can do to Trump supporters and Republicans is tell them the truth. And that got good applause, which was a good sign as well. Senator Lindsey Graham said Biden won the election. He said, like, even though I wanted Biden to lose, he didn't, and he was saying it's over. So that was powerful as well. Some cabinet members are considering invoking the 25th Amendment, sources said. The House and Senate officially rejected to challenge Biden's win. I didn't see the total House vote. There was a lot of House Republicans that still objected. I saw. But the Senate vote was 93-6, so it was almost unanimous. It was not even close, which was rebuffing Trump's domestic terrorists. Trump's former Secretary of Defense, James Mattis, spoke against the Capitol siege. Reports were that Trump was even pleased at the scene, and there was a good amount of Trump cabinet members that resigned because of what happened yesterday. Including, I think, Mick Mulvaney. Don Lemon and Joe Scarborough were just some of the people that went off on Trump over the actions. and there was a Confederate flag that was brought into the Capitol. And just to give you some context, the Confederate flag didn't even make it to the Capitol during the Civil War. Um, the Trump did deliver a statement on an orderly transition, but sources say that was only said to prevent further resignations from his cabinet. Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg banned Trump from Facebook indefinitely. Um, Now I saw another news source that said it was 2 weeks, but I saw a couple sources say indefinitely, so I don't know exactly if it's indefinitely or for a short while, but I know at least for a couple weeks his account has been taken down. So that was one good thing I've seen Facebook do, and I'm glad they did it. The FBI is asking people to, sorry, people to identify those who participated in the insurrection. And by the way, insurrection means a violent uprising against the government. I'd say breaking into the Capitol and endangering the lives of hundreds of congressmen fits that description pretty well. The latest numbers I've seen from that invasion of the Capitol was 4 people died, 52 were arrested, and 14 police officers were injured. I don't think I put it in here, but I also saw a video on, I don't know if it was the steps of the Capitol, I'm pretty sure it was the steps of the Capitol, of 2 Trump supporters reenacting the death of George Floyd. And I recently heard people say, why do you still say Black Lives Matter and why do you still talk about it? It was only important around the summer, like when it was, popular and everything. But people need to realize, that sounds like a racist person talking. People need to realize that Black Lives Matter is something that should always be said. Because clearly, like we saw yesterday when people were reenacting George Floyd's death, there's a lot of people that treat black people or other minorities a lot differently because of the way they look. And that's not even judging anything on their character. It's just on the color of their skin. They get treated differently. And, the Black Lives Matter protests were popular during the summer and had a lot of support, and that was good. But after that dies down, it's not like it should be, not talked about anymore. It's still relevant, and people need to know that. Republican Representative Adam Kinzinger, who I like and is also a representative of my state of Illinois, became the first Republican to call for Trump's removal from office by the 25th Amendment. That was shortly followed by Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer, that called for Trump to be removed by the 25th Amendment. And at the White House shortly before the Capitol was breached, Trump was pressuring Vice President Pence to overturn the election, and Pence refused to do so because he did not have the constitutional authority to do so. He was just, sent to be there and watch the certification happen. And Trump was throwing him under the bus, even though he's done basically everything for him. And there was a video before, the Capitol was breached. A separate incident of, supposed conservatives who are all about Blue Lives Matter and all that were yelling at cops. This group, the Proud Boys, were yelling at cops and treating them poorly. And thankfully the cops were, not allowing that, and they were treating them the same way as they treated Black Lives Matter protesters, at least in that instance. It wasn't showed yesterday, but in a separate whatever protest or whatever. Trump supporters harassed Senator Mitt Romney on his plane, I think, to D.C. I saw the video. They called him a traitor and said he might not have been elected legally. That's someone who almost became the president of the United States and lost only to Barack Obama. I'd say thankfully Trumpism is close to dead, because even though the thugs broke into the Capitol, you have to realize that is a small portion of Americans, and Trump gave his blessing of death to those Georgia senators that both lost, And even though Trump got a lot of votes in the general election, when his name, especially when his name's not on the ballot, Republicans are going to have a hard time being able to win if they keep relying on Donald Trump. And the sooner they realize that, the better this country is going to be. The better off this country is going to be. The Bucks and Pistons game, the players took a knee to start the game, which was something I appreciated. Yesterday, the number of Americans vaccinated was 4.8 million Americans. The crazy thing is there's so much craziness going on in America that that Capitol siege and everything took the headlines over coronavirus, even though coronavirus is extremely bad right now. As of yesterday, 4.8 million Americans were vaccinated, which was well below the 20 million goal that the president and his supporters were, or not the, sorry, that the president was saying. He was saying by the end of 2020 we were going to have 20 million people vaccinated, and a week after that we're at 4.8 million, which is not even close. As of January 5th, the U.S. hit a record COVID death number of 3,775 Americans. I wanted to shout out UC San Diego because they installed COVID-19 vending machines on campus, which is a smart way to get people tested. Nancy Pelosi, the past week, was reelected Speaker of the House. Scotland entered a full lockdown until the end of January. There's speculation that Trump will play golf in Scotland during Biden's inauguration on January 20th, which is 13 days away. And the Scottish First Minister responded to that. Nicola Sturgeon said that Trump could not play golf in Scotland as that is not an essential activity. So that's at least some good news that he's not allowed to flee the country, and hopefully at least if he's not going to be there, I don't really want him there because he's probably not going to be respectful and everything like that, but at least he'll probably be at Mar-a-Lago or whatever, and he'll have to probably watch it on TV. So yeah, about the mob breaking into the Capitol, it seems like the FBI is investigating these people, and hopefully they will get them arrested. But I think more importantly than arresting those people is arresting Donald Trump. And I know he's the president of the United States and everything like that, and I disagree that the president should not be above the law. But even if that's the case, they should force him to leave office and then arrest him. And his son Don Jr. and his lawyer Rudy Giuliani. They were all there yesterday, which caused this break into the Capitol to happen because they were angering their supporters and telling them to go to the Capitol. So they should be held accountable and they should be arrested for their crimes. So hopefully that gets done. Hopefully Congress discusses the 25th Amendment today. We'll have to wait and see on that. But yeah, I hope you guys have a good rest of your week. I hope 2021 starts to get better pretty soon. And yeah, have a good rest of your week. Bye.